Hey, what's going on, guys? It's HawksNest here, back with another Call of Duty mobile video. Now, inside of today's video, we're going to be talking about the brand new QXR. I was about to call it the XQR. I've done that a million times, but the new QXR SMG inside of COD mobile, which is also known as the MP7 in other CODs. But anyway, if you guys are wondering how to get your hands on this weapon for totally free, basically all you have to do is go to the main page, go to events, seasonal, run and gun, and then complete all of these challenges right here. And then by the time that you complete all of the challenges, you will get rewarded with the free QXR SMG. But if you don't want to do it the free way and actually have to grind for it, you could just go ahead and do the lucky draw, which you can see right here. I'm not going to explain lucky draws because I'm sure most of you guys know how this works, but basically you spend money to roll for different items, and then if you spend enough money, you will eventually get the QXR guaranteed. You could get lucky and get it earlier, but for me personally, it was actually the last item that I did receive, and you will get the legendary skin Secret Santa on top of it, or legendary blueprint, I guess is the better term for it. Anyway, inside of today's video, I do want to talk about this weapon a little bit more in depth and basically let you guys know the stats of the weapon and what my initial thoughts are after a couple games using it and just looking at all of the different stats and comparing those to other SMGs, as well as checking out how accurate my prediction was for this weapon, because when this weapon was actually announced to be coming out, I basically made a video explaining what my predicted stats were for this, as well as the Peacekeeper, but we're not going to be talking about the Peacekeeper in this video, obviously. But again, I basically made a video predicting the stats, and honestly, I got pretty close. So inside of this video, basically, I just want to compare my predictions to how the weapon actually turned out and see if this weapon came out balanced. But before we get into all of that, I do want to let you guys know that I basically gave a sneak peek to everyone that's following me on my Twitter. So if you guys want to follow my Twitter, it's just at HawksNest, and then basically you can see all of the stupid stuff that I post, because I post on Twitter a lot. With all of that being said, let's go ahead and check out what my predicted stats were and how those compare to the real stats. So the very first stat that we're actually going to be checking out is the damage and range values for the QXR, and as you can see on the top, basically you're going to be seeing the damage and range values that I predicted in a video a couple weeks ago, and on the bottom you can see the damage and range values that actually exist with the QXR right now as they are in the game. So as you can tell, the very first damage range is going to be 23 damage up to 9 meters, which I actually got spot on. That's the exact damage range for both the real one and my guess. Then after that, the next range is again the exact same range. I got it perfectly. The only difference was that the damage was 19 as opposed to my 20 guess. So as you can tell, 19 damage is going to be a 6-shot kill, whereas I thought it would be a 5-shot kill up to I believe 13 meters. Then after that, I guess it would be 18 damage up to 19 meters, but I was actually pretty close. It was 18 damage up to 18 meters. So once again, super close. So as you can tell, in terms of like the close range performance, my guess was very accurate. Honestly, the only really big difference here was the 20 damage as opposed to the 19 damage, because obviously that's the difference between a 5-shot and a 6-shot kill. Then after that, my next damage guess was 16 damage, which was once again spot on. The ranges were a little bit off, but then finally the thing that changes my QXR as opposed to the one that actually came out the most is the 13 damage range value. So as you can tell, I guessed that it would be 13 damage from I believe 25 meters and beyond, which would make it a 8-shot kill at those super long ranges. But COD Mobile decided to go with something a little bit different, and they basically just left that 16 damage. So as you can tell, the long range performance of the QXR is going to be a lot better than what I had predicted. So after damage and range is going to be the fire rate of the weapon, and my fire rate prediction was 950 rounds per minute, and I was actually kind of close. And it's also kind of weird because the QXR basically has a base fire rate of 800 rounds per minute, but there is a attachment which is called the Enhanced Bolt, which is just a perk which has no downsides. Well, not really no downsides, because technically when you have a faster fire rate, your recoil is going to be a little bit higher, just because it's going to climb faster, because obviously if you're shooting faster, your gun's going to go up faster. And then also it might affect how much your accuracy is of your weapon. I don't know for sure. I'd have to actually test that, but it says there's no downsides, but there are some very small ones. But regardless, it's basically an attachment that you should always be using with this weapon. But when you do use this attachment, the fire rate goes up to 980 fire rate goes up to 918 rounds per minute. So as you can tell, 918 as opposed to my 950 prediction, so a little bit lower. So now let's go ahead and look at exactly how this translates into time to kill over range. So in terms of the time to kill, obviously you can tell that everything is basically the same as the damage, except now instead of damage numbers, it's basically going to be showing you your time to kill. And as you can tell, really solid performance for the QXR. If you guys are curious how this time to kill performs to other weapons, the close range time to kill of the QXR is, it's not fast, but it's not slow, because it's not necessarily like the QQ9 or the Fennec or the Akimbo Fennec especially, or anything like that, but it is really solid. Like, you can definitely get away with a 261 millisecond time to kill. I would say it's basically right on the average mark. Then after that, it does go to 327 for a little while, and also once again 327. It's not slow, it's not fast, it's just kind of average. And then 392 at long range, which is actually more on the fast side. So as you can tell, that pretty much matches what I predicted, except for that really long range. So yeah, I was honestly pretty close in terms of the lethalness of the weapon. And before we go to the next thing, I do want to say one more time that in terms of the time to kill performance of the QXR, across the board, it is just a pretty average time to kill, which might sound like a bad thing, but honestly, I really like it because I like versatile weapons that I can really use in all kinds of situations. And based on my performance while I've actually been using the weapon, and based on the stats that I do know, which is obviously these damage values over ranges, it really does seem like the QXR is kind of like a jack of all trades, but not necessarily like a LK24. The LK24 is more like a versatile weapon that you can really use well at longer ranges, whereas I think the QXR is a jack of all trades that does skew a little bit more towards the close range area, because obviously it is an SMG. In terms of the body multipliers, I predicted that it would be 1.1 times damage to the head, 0.9 damage to the legs, and then just normal damage everywhere else, and that is exactly what it is. But I do want to talk about that leg multiplier of 0.9 a little bit more. So if we go back and look at the base damages of the QXR, as you can tell, it's 23, 19, 18, and 16. So if we do multiply those numbers by 0.9, basically we're gonna get, so instead of 23, if you hit someone in the legs, basically you're going to be dealing 20.7 damage, which is actually good because 23 damage is a 5-shot kill. And if you hit the legs, you're going to be dealing 20.7 damage, which is also a 5-shot kill. So with the QXR at close range, it doesn't matter if you're hitting the body or the legs, you're going to be getting the same amount of shots to actually kill someone either way. Which also means that with this weapon, typically you want to aim for the center of mass, which means right around the stomach area. That way you'll be able to connect on as many shots as possible. Then after that, we have 18 damage, and if we multiply that by 0.9, we're going to get 16.2, which basically puts us down to a 7-shot kill. So at this small range, you are actually going to have to be able to hit some upper body shots. You can still hit some leg shots and some body shots, but still, it's such a small range that it shouldn't be that big of a deal. Okay, so I just did the math, and you'd actually need to get around 5 or 6 leg shots to get a 7-shot kill. So for the most part, you're going to be able to hit a 6-shot kill with this weapon at that range. So even then, it's not really a big deal. And then at maximum range, 16 damage with a 0.9 leg multiplier will always give you a 7-shot kill, as long as you're not shooting someone through a wall or anything like that. So once again, doesn't matter, leg shots don't matter. So now let's go ahead and compare a couple more stats. So we already talked about the fire rate. Once again, 950 as opposed to 918 if we are using the perk, which I would recommend. Multipliers, as you can tell, I predicted the multipliers right. Penetration, SMG standard, that was an easy prediction. SMGs have SMG wall penetration, so that makes sense. In terms of the base ADS speed, I actually got it right on the nose. I guessed 233 milliseconds, and that is the exact ADS speed of the QXR, which if you guys are curious, let me go ahead and compare that to a couple other SMGs just so you kind of know what that looks like. Okay, so a 233 millisecond ADS speed will be the same as like the Pharaoh. It'll be a little bit faster than the PDW. It will be a little bit slower than the Fennec. And yeah, honestly, for the most part, it's on the faster side. It's also slower than the MSMC, so it's definitely a faster ADSing SMG. In terms of the magazine size, I predicted 30. It came out to be 40, which is a really big surprise to me, especially considering that the reload speed I guessed to be 1.88 seconds, but it's actually even faster at 1.5 seconds. So as you can tell, the magazine performance of the QXR is really, really good. Then in terms of the recoil, I predicted that the recoil would be pretty high, but I thought it'd go really straight, but I was kind of close. Here's a little compilation of 14 different sprays that I combined so that you guys can see exactly where the shots will go, and once again, you can kind of tell what the recoil pattern looks like with this image. So in my opinion, I would consider it medium recoil. I didn't really find myself having a lot of issues controlling this recoil. It just definitely takes a little bit of practice. You're not going to get it the very first game that you play, but the more that you actually go, you'll definitely find yourself being able to laser people at longer ranges. Then in terms of the bullet spread accuracy, I found the bullet spread accuracy to be pretty similar to like the Type 25, which would be right around above average. It's not incredible, it's not bad, it's not average, it's slightly above, which is pretty close to what I predicted of it being a high accuracy SMG, because it is not necessarily high accuracy, it's just a little higher than average, I guess. So pretty close. In terms of the sprinting speed, it has a sprint speed of 6.44 meters per second, which is about the same as the QQ9. It is kind of on the average side of SMGs. And in terms of its ADSing speed, so the movement speed that you're gonna have when you're actually ADSing your gun, which is really important if you are a strafer, which basically means you move side to side when you're shooting a lot. It has a pretty high ADS movement speed of 2.88 meters per second, which is a little bit slower than the Fennec, but faster than basically all of the other SMGs. which makes this gun really good for strafing, especially if you are taking those mid-range fights when strafing really does play a factor in whether or not you're going to actually win those kind of gunfights. So that's going to be all of these stats that I do have for you guys. Now let's go ahead and talk about attachments and playstyle a little bit more. So if you guys are curious what build I am rocking right now, it is going to be this build right here. So basically the goal of this build right here is to make this kind of like an AR SMG hybrid, because once again, it's basically a really solid time to kill across the board, and then it also has solid accuracy. So my goal with this build once again was to make it more of a mid-range SMG that can also perform at close and longer ranges. So to do that, we have the monolithic suppressor. Basically we're using a suppressor so that we can use this as a flanking gun. So obviously it's going to perform really well if you are kind of playing the edge of the map. Also, we are going to be getting a damage range increase, and then the downsides we're basically going to be fixing with other attachments, so not going to worry about those right now. After that, we have the OWC Marksman. Once again, we're going to be fixing some of the issues that were brought on from the monolithic suppressor with this attachment. Then we're also going to be gaining even more damage range, but from this we are going to be losing some of our mobility stuff, such as movement speed and ADS speed, which is going to be fixed by a couple things. The first one is obviously going to be the OWC Laser Tactical. Basically, this is going to be bringing back our ADS time and then also helping out with our ADS bullet spread accuracy. Obviously, the only downside of this is the visible laser sights, which is really not that big of a deal because it only pops up when you do ADS. Then after that, the perk is Enhanced Bolt, which increases our fire rate, kind of just a no-brainer with this weapon. Then our final attachment is going to be No Stock, basically just bringing back a little bit more mobility. And then the downsides of this is that we are losing some ADS bullet spread accuracy, which is not a big deal because all of our other attachments are helping with that for the most part. It does add a little bit of vertical recoil, which isn't a big concern for me because vertical recoil is pretty easy to compensate. You just pull down. Then after that, the other downside is going to be 8% hit flinch, which can either be fixed if you add the toughness perk, or if you don't want to do that, honestly, it's not that big of a deal because with this weapon, you are using it as a flanking weapon, so you're not going to be taking a lot of long range fights head to head. For the most part, you're just going to be kind of playing from the sides of the map, which means that you're going to be shooting people from the side. So I didn't really notice that much of an issue from that. So this is just my initial build. I've been playing with it and I really enjoy it. Obviously, you could change some attachments. If you just want to start here, this is kind of a good jumping off point. And then once again, this is more for a flanking playstyle. You could also go with a speed build and basically add a bunch of attachments that help with like your mobility and your ADS speed. The problem that I found with that is that this weapon doesn't kill super fast close range. So personally, I would prefer to use a different gun if I am playing super aggressive and wanted to use something that is super high mobility. Although you could definitely do that because one of the plus sides once again of this weapon is that you can hit leg shots and it's not that big of a deal. So if you use the QQ9 and struggle with hitting a lot of leg shots and you just don't really like that, this could be a great weapon to use with ADS attachments. And the final thing that I do want to mention is that I really like the iron sights on this. I actually think the iron sights on the base QXR are better than the QXR Secret Santa, even though the Secret Santa iron sights are decent. And then after that, for perks, I would just recommend probably Ghost. If you're trying to nuke, definitely go Vulture, but if you're trying to play more stealthy, because obviously you have a monolithic suppressor, you could go with Ghost. I went with the Hardline just because I'm still trying to develop what blue perk I like the most, just so it doesn't really matter. And then Lightweight just because I am playing semi-aggressive and trying to rotate around the map pretty quick, so Lightweight's good. But if you do want to strafe super fast, just because you're someone that strafes a lot, Skulker would also be great. So yeah, that's going to be it for today's video. If you guys enjoyed, definitely make sure to drop a like and a sub down below. And with all of that being said, I will see you guys later. Peace.